Have you ever stopped to think about what happens if a government insists on not listening to the voice of the people? Since October 9th, Mozambique has been going through a series of changes. And while many are still trying to understand what is happening, the people of Mozambique have already begun to react. The government, which has been making increasingly unpopular decisions, is finding itself under pressure. And if this pressure continues to grow, what could happen? The question is, how far will this resistance go? Will the people accept it? Or will the government use force to stay in power? This situation is not an isolated one. It's happening right before our eyes, and it could affect much more than just Mozambique. Stay with me until the end of this video to understand what is truly at stake and the impact this could have, both on the Mozambican people and the rest of the world. Let's start at the beginning to understand where we are now. Since its independence, Mozambique has faced significant challenges. After the Civil War, the country embarked on a process of reconstruction, politically, economically, and socially. But over the years, many issues have continued to arise, such as corruption, inequality, and poverty, which still affect a large part of the population. Even with these difficulties, Mozambique has managed to remain relatively stable to a certain extent. But, like many countries, when things aren't going well for the people, pressure on the leaders increases. And this pressure became even more evident since October 9, 2024. The government, led by Filipe Nyusi, began making increasingly controversial moves. Decisions that displeased a large portion of the population. These protests are not just about food shortages or price increases but also about the lack of true representation of the people in government. What we see today is an isolated government, facing growing opposition and a population that is becoming increasingly dissatisfied. The big question is, why is the government so determined to continue with its policies, even knowing it could lead to even greater resistance? Well, as many already know, the elites in power have their own business interests. And these interests don't always align with the well-being of the population. These interests are often tied to big businesses involving natural resources, like natural gas, which Mozambique has in abundance. The country is one of Africa's largest gas export prospects, attracting foreign investment. But the question is, who is really benefiting from this? Are the resources being used to improve the lives of the Mozambican people? Or are they simply enriching a minority? A key part of this dynamic involves foreign powers, such as the European Union, which have an interest in securing access to Mozambique's energy resources. It's no secret that they see instability in the country as an opportunity for business. For example, over €20 million have been allocated to Rwandan soldiers fighting terrorism in Mozambique. This, of course, has a significant impact on internal matters. And as much as this aid may seem positive, the reality is that these interventions are often more tied to the strategic interests of these countries than to the real security of the Mozambican population. Now, what does this mean for you, who's watching? It may seem distant, but in reality, what's happening in Mozambique can have direct impacts on us, no matter where we are in the world. We live in an increasingly globalized world, where the economic interests of one country can affect the future of others. The resistance we see today in Mozambique is a reflection of something much larger, the people's struggle against a system that has lost its way in its own interests. The elites, big business owners, and foreign powers need to understand that without the people, none of this would work. It's the worker, the youth, the farmer, the teacher, who keeps the economy running, not the powerful. So, what does the future hold for Mozambique? Will it continue to be an arena of conflict between the people and the powerful? Or will the country find a way to move forward in a way that benefits everyone? The people's resistance is clear. But at the same time, we must stay alert to the next moves of the government and foreign powers. What happens after December 23 could be a turning point.